see the footage.
All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Inverse proportions.
Wait, I need to check my...
I think the iPad can pick me up, but I don't know how well. We'll find out.
Can we just pick up... We have to bench.
What if it was scrolling and they're coming to us right now?
Oh, wait, it's
Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully find out. I think I know who to ask. Maybe. We'll just solve this problem. No, honestly, I think someone borrowed it, but they didn't tell me, so I come in. I don't.
Was it Mr. Hubbard?
I don't know. All right, inverse proportions. Listen carefully. So with direct variation or direct proportions, when one thing went up, the other thing went up as well. That's for direct. When one thing goes down, the other one goes down. Inverse proportions, you guys remember that when one thing goes up, the other one has to go down. And when one thing goes down, the other one has to go up. So that's inversely related, inversely proportional. Okay, I'm going to read that problem again at the very beginning on page 200. At the flower power shop, 10 florists make 15 wreaths in 12 hours. If 6 extra florists are hired, how much time is needed to do the same work? Which is very important in this problem. Now, in the book, it gives you 3 methods to solve. I'm just going to simplify it and give you one method to solve this problem. So what are the 2 things we're comparing here? There are 3 things mentioned, but only 2 of them are necessary. Which ones are necessary, therefore the other one being unnecessary? Abby, do you remember?
The florist and the time, or
The florist and the...
hours.
Yeah, no, and you're right, time. Florist and time. And florist is measured in florists, like you would call it 5 florists, 10 florists, 16 florists. And time we're going to measure in hours. So we're going to put hours for time. All right, this is how I want you guys to work it out. I hope it's going to be pretty clear. But in the direct proportion, do you guys remember we did like florists over time equals florist over time? That was for direct variation. In inverse proportions, we're going to compare this way. We're going to compare, and there are a couple ways even within method number within method number 2. But I'm going to start with florist. I'm going to put here what they put. Let's make sure. All right, fewer florists over more florists. And I'll explain why I get this fewer, more idea. There are 2 scenarios in this problem. The first scenario has 10 florists. What does the second scenario have? You see what it says if 6 more were added? So how many do I have in the more situation? So I have 10 in the fewer side and 16 on the more side. You guys see that? So I'm going to put that as my fraction here. So here, the fewer was 10, the more was 16. So that's my first ratio. So I put fewer over more. For the other ratio, I'm going to put fewer, instead of florists, hours and more hours. And this is where you have to think a little bit. So I'm comparing the florists with the florists and the hours with the hours. Fewer over the more. You got to make sure they're parallel. Fewer, more. Here's where you got to think about it though. They gave me 12 hours for 10 florists, right? If I have 10 florists, 12 hours of work. Now they gave me 16 florists, right? They went up with 1. So what happens to the hours? It should go down, right? So you're like, do you understand that? You have 12 hours and then another number that's lower than 12 hours, right? So which one goes for the fewer hours? Do you know how many? I don't know. But what's the more hours? The 12, right? Because when this went up, the other one had to go down. So that's how I get my numbers here. Go ahead and solve it. Cross multiply. This is something hopefully you got enough practice with.
This is way easier.
Yeah, it is, because it's just straightforward, boom, boom, put them in, cross multiply, get it, and hopefully it makes sense. So I'm going to get 12 times 10, which is 120, and that equals 16 times x, which is 16x. divide both sides by 16, excuse me, and I get the number of hours, okay, hours.
Do we round it up or something?
No, it's going to be a decimal that ends, so keep that decimal that ends. And what did you guys get? 7.5.
Oh, I didn't get that.
7.5 or 7.5
Hours.
hours. 7.5 hours. 7.5 hours. Okay, let's see if that makes sense. Ready? When you went from 10 floors to 16 floors, what should have happened to the time? Should have gone down from 12 to 7.5, and it did. And that makes, hopefully it makes sense. Do you guys get that one? Okay, we'll do a couple more together just to make sure we nail it down.
Yes.
But that makes logical sense with the inverse proportion. Okay, let's do another one here. Example number 1 again. So example number 1, and we're talking about engineers and hours. So a team of 8 engineers. Team of 8 engineers inspects a new jet in 9 3/4 hours. You guys see example number 1, page 201. How many engineers would it take to inspect the new jet in 6 hours? So what are the two things we're comparing? Engineers and time in hours again. So you have that again. And engineers are just engineers. So we're going to label them that. Okay, we're going to set up a proportion. We're going to compare fewer engineers over more engineers. And then we're going to compare fewer hours over more hours. So I'm going to put in the numbers where they belong. Okay. They said a team of 8 engineers inspects a new jet in 9 3/4 hours. How many engineers? So we're trying to figure out the number of engineers. Where does the 8 go?
Under.
I heard top and under.
Engineers.
You know what? I'm not too sure because I can't keep it straight. Let's look at the hours first.
No, it's bottom.
Look at the hours. You got 9 3/4 hours and 6 hours. Do you know where those should go?
6 hours on the top. And
6 hours on the top, so we're going to go 6 hours up here, and 9 3/4 on the bottom, right? Fewer over more. That's. I hope that's straightforward, right? One's fewer, one's more. Those are the numbers. Okay, but the engineers, here's what you have. 8 engineers took 9 3/4 hours. The time needs to go down, which means the engineers need to go up, opposite way. So where does the 8 go?
On the bottom. On the top.
on the bottom.
The 8 goes on the top. Because aren't I going to get a scenario where you have more engineers? So that's where I get that number. So remember, 8 engineers, 9 3/4 hours, right? Do you guys see that? 8 engineers, 9 3/4 hours. The time goes down. What happens to the number of engineers?
Goes up.
It goes up. So you have 8 and some number above it, which is where we get these numbers. Cross multiply. And don't forget you're dealing with a mixed number. So a couple ways you can deal with
I
that.
have a question.
Yes, sir.
With the 9 3/4,
Yes.
could you change it to a decimal to make it easier?
You can. You can do 9.75. You can do that.
Is that what? How would you do it with?
Yeah, you can do a fraction too. I'm going to do it with the fractional part. I'm going to get 8 over 1 times, and then 36, 39 over 4.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to simplify here. So 2 times 39 is 78 equals 6x. And divide both sides by 6, and I get 13 engineers.
So we didn't do that.
Okay, let's see if it makes sense though. 8 engineers, 9 3/4 hours. If you drop 9 3/4 to 6, what should happen to the 8 engineers?
Go up.
Should go up. Did it go up from 8? Did it go up? Yeah?
Yes.
Got to 13. That makes sense. That's how you work out those problems.
On the
Yes, sir.
homework, do we have to, where it says it gives you 1, but then you have to work out where the 8 is?
Yes, you're going to have to know, does it go here or down there based on this proportion that you wrote out. Okay, how many have questions on that? Again, swivel, I'm going to admit, the first time I didn't do so well. But now, after losing a piece of swivel, it helped me to rethink, how do I teach? What methods do I use?
Me.
How do I view you guys? Because, swivel, you've been with me, this is now our second year together. First year was awkward, right? You just get to know somebody, work as partners. But second year, he knows what I'm going to say at the same time I say it.
So it's like dawn.
No. At the same, not before, at the same time.
You've been here for 3 years.
Yeah, so we just got them last year.
How does the
think,
mic
yeah.
work without the thing?
I don't know, but see, we don't need that mic anymore. We used to need the mic. I don't think we need it anymore. I think he knows what I'm saying, right? Gabby Swivel? Okay, he can't nod right now, but he would if he could. All right, I want you to do page 201, number 1 on the try these on your own. Try these, number 1. It takes 15 people 2 hours to plant 450 tomatoes. Or tomatoes for some of you. If 5 more people are hired, how long will it take them to plant the same number of tomatoes? Sorry, tomatoes, yeah.
Tomatoes are for... Tomato. That's how you say it.
Yeah, right? See? It can be both.
Stop saying it. It makes me think it's not a word.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking at number 1. What one piece of info is unnecessary in that problem? Unfortunately, it's the number of tomatoes. Both of them.
Potatoes.
We got people. We're dealing with people
Over time.
and time. Yep. And we're talking again about hours. It's not always hours, by the way. It could be days. It could be weeks, years. Okay, but mostly time is hours on these problems. Okay. So here's my proportion automatically. If all I knew is that fewer people over more people. And does anyone know how to set up the second one?
Fewer time, more time.
Oh, sorry, just the general. Fewer hours or fewer time over more time.
Is it always going to be fewer over more?
See, technically, if I flip this, I could work it out, but I'd also have to flip that one. So you can put more people, more time, fewer people, fewer time.
So it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. Just keep it consistent. Yeah, it has to be fewer up top, more on the bottom, or vice versa.
Okay.
All right, let's see here. 15 people, 2 hours to plant 450 tomatoes. 5 more people. So first of all, where does the 15 people go? Where does the 15 go? Fewer.
No.
It's the fewer amount because what did they say? Just the next sentence? If 5 more people were hired, which is 20. So that's my first ratio.
Oops.
But then the hours, 2 hours, where does that go? I heard 2 things. It can't be on both. It won't work on both. Okay, ready? Let's do it real quick. Just 15 people, 2 hours of work. 20 people, less time, right? Less time. So 2 should go with the bottom, so more hours, and I need to figure that out.
I got that right. Wait, where did you get the 20
Yeah.
Where you see where it says if 5 more people were hired?
So we have to add.
So you have to add that to the 15. Yeah, 5 more people means there are now 20 people working.
Why did you put the 2 on the bottom?
The 2 on the bottom? Because here's the scenario. Watch my hands. 15 people takes 2 hours of work, right? if you increase the number of people to 20, what has to happen to the time? It should go down, right? Time should go down. So if you had 2 hours being the more, X is going to be the fewer.
I'm just checking.
Like, if you were coloring and
Don't worry.
I get that. It's just.
It is. So think about it. Yeah. If you need to do this in your head,
But I don't understand what you're
or just you can do it with your shoulders too. That works sometimes.
Shoulders?
Yep.
I don't understand what you're shoulders.
Proof is on the paper. Potato, salad, tomato.
1.5
hours.
Where'd you get this? Oh yeah.
hours.
1.5.
You say 1.5 hours.
H is weird.
Oh, 1 hour and
It's like
30
a-
minutes.
Can we do 1.5?
Oh, you
Ready?
can do 90 minutes.
Did it make sense? 15 people, 2 hours. 20 people,
And it has to
1.5 hours.
That makes
That
sense.
makes sense. Because it's an inverse.
5 people for every 30 minutes.
Say it again.
5 people for every 30 minutes. Or it could be 5,400 seconds.
Mr. Ray, could you just divide it maybe 15 over 23 and 4?
Yes. And then we're going to come up.
Mr. Ray,
You're right.
would it be wrong to put 1.5?
Nope.
That's like a TI. Hours, TIRS.
Let me give you something that's very clear.
Oof.
1 to 2 off.
5 minutes. You gotta be kidding me. What Yes, Mr. Ray. Yes, Mr. Ray.
Begin your homework.
Thank you.
If you're goofing off or talking, you're telling me I need more.
Thanks for giving us time.
More or fewer hours?
Fewer hours.
More time, fewer problems. Less time, more problems.
No.
That's proportional.
Mr. Ray, I'm going to turn off the
What do we do with our homework?
Click the red button.